This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Pitman Kennedy is a youth leadership expert and a retired Master Sergeant with the U.S. Air Force. He's here to talk about how playing sports prepares kids for the real world. He's also the author of The Audacity of Resilience, a refugee memoir. Pittman joins us via Zoom from San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Pittman.
Good afternoon. How are you today? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the program with us. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Yes,
I want to get to two things, the idea about kids and sports, but before I get to that, I want to talk about your book, The Audacity of Resilience, a refugee memoir. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that memoir just illustrates my journey from Liberia, from when I came as a kid, growing up in Liberia and having to flee from my country due to a civil war as a teenager, and then live as a refugee in Sierra Leone for about a couple of years before I was able to get moved to the United States. And the book just kind of talks about my encounters, my experiences, and ultimately the lessons learned from the said experiences. Yeah.
So how old were you when you arrived in the United States?
I arrived at 19 years old.
So you were not a child. You were an adult basically when you arrived. But did you learn the idea of how important kids and sports is from something in your own past, or something you had wished you had a chance to accomplish when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and it's a combination of both. As a kid, I played sports, but the difference between my experiences and the opportunities I had and the opportunities that the young people have now, there's so much resources. They have parents that are invested financially and even committing time. Whereas in my experiences as a young man, it was difficult and different in that playing sports was a very small priority in the whole entire family structure. Your chores and your academic work were paramount, and they had to be completed first before you were given the opportunity to even play sports.
Well, when you were growing up, was there even the opportunity available to play and organize sports, or was it just like pickup games with neighborhood kids?
Yeah, there were opportunities to play, but the cost benefit analysis, depending on each family structure, was the ultimate determinator. And in my case, no, I would say no for me, because my dad priorities were focused on what I needed to do in the home. So playing sports, I had to escape to do that. And a lot of times when I would escape, the reward with consequences would be some type of lashing on the behind.
I know what that's all about. Was it? Why do you feel it is so important for children, for kids to be in sports? What do you feel it gives them as far as organizational skills that they may lack otherwise?
Sports is so critical. It gives a balancing act for youth, for young people, because the principles applied to sports carried over to life. For instance, your individual accountability, your dignity for self, your dignity, your commitment to work. Those traits, they translate into real life. You have to have self-respect before you can even consider the dignity of the teammates around you, be it your parents in your home or your workmates at work or students at school. So sports give you basic fundamental principles that once you embrace them, the rest of your life can almost be an easier task.
I mentioned you're a retired Master Sergeant with the U.S. Air Force. You served for 21 years. Since you didn't have the opportunity to play sports as a child, do you think being in the military gave you those things that you may have missed?
Absolutely. The military experience revived my entire journey, because you're right. Things that I had the desire, I love sports so much. I wish some days I sit there and just wish I had the opportunities that I see the kids have. But joining the Air Force gave me an opportunity to participate with teams and in my organization. There's different levels. and also gave us the resources and the time and encouraged participation in sports. So it almost like I had to relive the experiences as a youth, but as an adult, and it was very rewarding. In fact, it was so rewarding that my transition from being an active player to a coach was almost seamless due to my experiences and the resources provided by the Air Force.
You, as I mentioned, are a youth leadership expert as well. How did that come about? Was this something that was a driving force for you, or was it something that materialized? For instance, do you have children?
Yes, I have 3 children.
Okay. Was it something that materialized with the birth and the growing up of your own kids?
Yes, that was part of it. Another part of it was just the innate ability to help others and inspire them, even as a youth. But more importantly, it all came together after I joined the Air Force. One thing the Air Force fosters is leadership from the inception of your enlistment to whenever you end your service. Leadership, leadership, leadership. But you leadership in a unique way. For example, if I was leading a team, I'm responsible for the failures or the shortcoming, whereas they are responsible for the success. And that's a unique type of leadership that fosters accountability, responsibility, discipline, and selflessness, all under the umbrella of servant leadership. So when you go through that for 21 years, it just kind of hardened and it is solidified in you as a leader. Now, bringing in my experiences from a youth coach and players aspect, once you combine all of them, leadership and adult leadership for youth becomes almost an easy task.
So how do you go about keeping youth of today goal-driven and headed in the right direction?
Educating them. For instance, you got to educate them. Their priorities are all over the place. So it's important. First of all, you got to build a trusting relationship with the young people. Once they trust you, they will listen. And for some reason, I experienced this myself, and kids all around the plethora of sports experience the same thing. They will listen to somebody else as a coach or teacher before they listen to their own parents. I don't know how to fix that, but I experienced that myself. So I'm privileged with the opportunity to help inspire youth. I use myself as an example a lot of times to let them know that they can achieve just about anything. But more importantly, you have to make them internalize the principles of discipline, of fundamental work that's going to drive towards successful outcomes. Because a lot of times they are carried away by these artificial results, artificial success means, but they don't understand the process of really achieving success in their own individual life. And it starts from just simple things like making the bed up and being responsible to make a good grade in school and saying, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, thank you, please. Those fundamental principles can only be built. So a lot of times when you start to enlighten young people, you will find that it will start to manifest results and in different levels and different lengths and all of that. But at the end of the day, they always come out better once they buy into it.
Okay, well, here's the $64,000 question. Okay, you came to the United States as an immigrant.
That's correct.
You also went into the military, which is very regimented and very structured. And now you're a youth leader and you're raising 3 children. Now, I, too, am the son of an immigrant. So I know what the immigrant mentality is when it comes to raising kids. And also sometimes the difficulty of raising North American kids because it's a very open society. Does any of your background, either from your childhood or from your military experience, clash with some of the things that you feel children should be doing?
All the time, absolutely. And I preface that by saying my kids are older now. My youngest is 21, and the other is 26 and 25. So, but yes, I couldn't, here's the thing about it. Raising kids, just as well as leadership and all these things, they're continuously learning opportunities. There's no such thing as I have arrived at the point to where I can raise kids. You learn every day, present new opportunities. And yes, my fundamental values always conflict because today is different from when we were kids. and the beliefs and the value system that we were brought up on is completely different. I'm not saying that it's wrong or I'm going to condemn them, but it's important that we find a balancing act, because if we try to just hold them to the values that we were used to, a lot of times we fall short because there's not going to be a buy-in. But you have to educate them and open the awareness to where they can see that if they buy in, there's going to be some consequences in a positive manner on the other side of it. That process itself is what they need to buy into, because it's the process that delivers them at the end as a product, whatever entity they come out as. But the process is where we struggle. So I agree. Yes,
okay, so your memoir is The Audacity of Resilience, a refugee memoir. Your
sir.
kids are now adults, but
Yes, sir.
I gotta ask, at any time, especially when your kids were teenagers, if you ever told a story about you growing up, did you ever catch them rolling their eyes?
I didn't really catch them rolling the eyes, but they don't care about it. They're not interested in that. They're not. I don't remember a day that either one of them said, "Hey, Dad, sit down and tell me your experience in this area or in that area." Yes, they know that Dad wrote a book. They know that you tell them, especially when those times when you are chastising them, that's when you kind of reflect and use examples of your bringing up. But they don't care, and they don't see no value in that.
Well, I'm sure many people care, and again, your book is The Audacity of Resilience, a refugee memoir. I think it's very important what you're doing as a youth leadership expert, and also your background, not only from where you came from, but as a retired Master Sergeant with the Air Force, and being a motivational speaker, I'm sure is very beneficial to those that you talk to. Pittman, I thank you very, very much for taking the time to be on the program with us.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot for having me. And hopefully folks can take away from the little 10-minute conversation that have so much value in there. Thanks for what you do.
Pitman Kennedy, author of The Audacity of Resilience, a refugee memoir. You can go to my website at thestufffile.com, check out the show number for this program, which is show number 0664, and you'll find the link to either amazon.com or amazon.ca, where you can order his book directly.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.